local communities by decentralizing how we manage our government systems in Papua New Guinea. By doing so, we are allowing communities in the rural areas to take ownership of decisions that they make. We are now reinvesting in areas like agriculture, tourism, small to medium enterprises that are going to be able to sustain the economy in the future when we experience such downturn in commodity prices. This is empowering local communities, and it will obviously change lives of people, bringing government to the communities closest to the people. We are enabling our rural majority to have a say in where their country is going. The implementation of these policies are well in advance. Only a few weeks ago, we had our Leaders Summit in Port Moresby, where we had reports from the remotest parts of the country. Our services are being delivered in healthcare, in education, in road infrastructure. How it is changing their communities because government's policy of enabling them and resourcing them.
Welcome to the Tanim Graun show. That was actually footage from Prime Minister Honourable Peter O'Neill just over a fortnight ago at the National Press Club in Canberra. Power to the people and services to the district. So that's basically the agenda for this conversation this afternoon. We have Honourable Charlie Abel, the Minister for National Planning, and the member for Alotau, the open member for Alotau. We also have the Governor for Western Britain sitting on my left here, Honourable Sasindran Muthuvel. We have the Moderator of the United Church in Papua New Guinea, Reverend Siai, sitting on my left. We have Mrs. Julie Bengi, Director of Corporate Services for the Western Highlands Provincial Health Authority. So she's got over 18 years working experience, both in the health sector as well as in the private sector as well. So she comes with a lot of background, and we hope she can be able to assist in this conversation that we are trying to have right now. And lastly, but not the least, we got Mr. Graham King. Now, Graham actually has been here. He came to Papua New Guinea in 1981, right, Graham?
1980.
1980. So, we're talking about experience going back to 1980, and if some of you are familiar with with the Didimans and with the agricultural services that the governments in previous years used to roll out to centers outside of Port Moresby, then basically he started off his activities here in PNG from that side before working his way into the oil palm sector. So he comes with a lot of experience as well. So we have to kick off with the initiator of this whole concept called the District Development Authority. We have to give that privilege and the honor to the Minister for National Planning. So, Minister, if you can be able to, in your own words, break down district development authorities. What is it, and how will it improve the lives of ordinary Papua New Guineans?
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to all the other members on the panel and also to the audience. And thank you to the Tanim Graun people for this occasion. Our government has been emphasising rural empowerment, bringing services closer to our people, and part of that exercise has been the effort to introduce district development authorities as an implementing agency. And it's something that was actually talked about in the previous government, but never activated till now. And this Parliament has brought record numbers of legislation to the floor of Parliament, and the DDA legislation is, of course, one of them. And it's just an effort to bring this concept of services, you've been using the word decentralization, down closer to our people. And it just creates a legal entity in an area which is the district administration. We are already committing and providing large amounts of money there. And so it's part of capacitating, legalizing, creating a framework around an intention that is to decentralize, to empower, to resource lower levels of government, to bring government services closer to the people. It empowers the district CEO, used to be the district administrator. As I said, it creates a legal structure Ultimately, it will also have a tenders board down there. It will create a new staffing structure with a bit more emphasis on technical services and to support the tenders board and to just create some capacity and transparency and framework around the intention to bring services down to our people. And that's the simplest way I can put the DDA.
All right, thank you, Minister.
I'll just say quickly, you mentioned wards. The intention as we go forward is to actually take this concept even further down, and that is down to the lowest point in the governance chain, and that is at council ward level. So we've begun a process by bringing councillors onto the payroll now, village court magistrates, peace officers. We want to, the ward recorder has to come on. We are setting up a process, and I'll talk about the Planning Act that I'm bringing to Parliament in the next session, creating the service delivery framework and the minimum levels of service that we want down this cascading chain of structure, governance structure. And we actually want to begin to resource directly the council wards. So it's part of a bigger process of decentralisation as well. And ultimately, we want to begin to empower right down to the councillor and his WDC and the other supporting framework around him at that level, and resource him to look after minimum services right down at the village level.
Minister, thank you very much. I appreciate that background that you've given us and you've given the audience. Now, district development authorities are being formed to kickstart projects across, a whole range of sectors, health, education, to name a few. They are actually chaired by open members. They also appoint, CEOs to actually carry out their day-to-day activities. So earlier in the week, I had a chance to catch up with the acting secretary for the Department of Provincial and Local Level Government Affairs, Mr. Dixon Guina. Yes. So I did have a chat with him about DDAs and what role does his department play in the rollout of DDAs. So let's just have a few minutes to listen to Mr. Guina and what he has to say about DDAs. Good afternoon, Acting Secretary, Mr. Guina. Welcome to the Tanim Graun program. The topic for the afternoon, we're talking about district development authorities. Decentralization of services to ordinary Papua New Guineans, is a key pillar of this government. But I think the challenge for the DDAs is not a lot of Papua New Guineans have heard about the concept since the inception in 2014. So as the Secretary for the department responsible for the rollout, what is the DDA?
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for this opportunity for me to talk on this program. DDA is basically a district development authority. It's under Section 33A of the Organic Law, which used to be JDP-PPC, it's now changed to District Development Authority. It's really having that authority to be able to deliver service for the local level government and, of course, the provincial administration of the provincial government. So that's the authority that was established in 2014 by the government.
All right. Acting Secretary, we're actually heading into 2 years now since the inception of the program in 2014. Now, are you able to give us some examples? I know it's a little bit too early.
Yes.
To actually talk about, live, programs actually in place in districts. But are you able to give us some examples of DDA and what it might mean for service delivery?
Yes, good question. The District Development Authority, in fact, came into law by 2015, January last year. So it is in operation, if you like, for a year now. But we have to do roll out an awareness to all the districts and provincial administrations and, of course, all other stakeholders. And I can confidently say that the district development authorities have started, implementation of their development projects, and I can give you some good examples. It was have been presented in the last Leader Summit, where Prime Minister hosted, and it was very interesting to know that some of the remotest districts in the country are delivering service. Now you can see tangible things happening. I can give an example like in Nuku, for instance, and in Minamia, some of the remotest part in the country are delivering services. So I think that is a big change in terms of service delivery.
All right. Acting Secretary, I think one of the big challenges for the DDAs is, the administrative and financial frameworks, So you will definitely need the support, of other line agencies to be able
Correct.
to make it a success. What's the level of support from other agencies?
That's a good question, and I think as a government, we are facing that as a whole of government approach. It was directed by the Prime Minister and, of course, our former Chief Secretary, Mr. Manasuke Junolo. And we have teamed up with National Planning, the Treasury Department, Finance, DPM, the main central agencies, to go out, Department of Works, to go out and doing that rollout awareness program. And you correctly say that it has to be in the whole of government approach, because we need to have those systems and processes to be able to deliver DDA effectively, efficiently.
Acting Secretary, can I just ask how many DDA boards are already in operation?
That's a good question. So far, we have 89 districts. We have 26 DDAs have submitted their respective instrument of swearing in as a proof. Not to say that some districts have already done it, and we're still waiting for that. So the number may have increased, but it all depends dependent on the leadership, ownership, and willingness of the districts, and of course their leaders.
Acting Secretary, thank you for finding time to join us on this Tanim Graun program.
You're welcome, and thank you for this opportunity to talk to you, and of course the listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was the Acting Secretary for the Department of Provincial and Local Level Government Affairs. Now, the next person that I will have to go to is the Governor for Western Britain. Governor, thanks for finding time to join us on the program. Where does DDAs leave the provinces? How do you see the DDAs? Do you see it as a challenge to your provincial government?
For me, it sounds more like a change of name from JDP BPC to DDA. Of course, DDA comes with, I think, more responsibilities and given more powers, like to become like an corporate entity, whereby it can be legally sued or be sued. It's like the Secretary for DPLGA was mentioning. There are a lot of awareness need to be done. There was some awareness done in 2014 end. They called in all the provincial government, especially the PAs and the CEOs to Kokopo, and there was some awareness was done. We don't see it as a challenge, but we are just looking at where does it really fit in. Like, provincial government, we do not want to see that there is another level of government created, within the system. We have enough governments. We have 3 levels of governments. We don't want, 4th level of government again. That means instead of we are talking about 22 districts, we are going to talk about 22 provincial governments, we are going to talk about 89 district governments. Suppose if the intention is going towards that way. And again, how does the DDA will act if in the event, if DSIP stops? Like, where the funding will come from. The provincial government, by law, will operate. Whether the funds come from PSIP or any other source, the provincial government has to run. Of course, it's the challenge is our internal revenue and all those issues. But for DDA concept to be fully operational, there must be some assurance or guarantee, because right now it is only 100% depending on the DSIP. There is no other revenue generation. There again, we have to be really clear. Even if the provincial government cannot create revenue capacity, like for example, West New Britain was collecting in 2012-13 almost 3 to 4 million kina in the form of tax, like tax on beer and cigarette, 20 toya per bottle of beer, 3 toya per stick of cigarette, and it was in initiative by DPLGA through some consultants from Australian government to support or to help build the capacity of provincial governments. But then in 2012, while delivering the 2013 budget, government amended the Intergovernment Relations Functions and Goods and Services Act 2009. They amended in such a way that any provincial government which collects any form of tax will disqualify to receive its 60% GST component. So that itself, it's like a big challenge. I mean, we are talking about wanting to bring the services to the rural area. Then how are we going to help the DDA to generate some revenue? Unless otherwise, we also build their capacity to generate revenue, not just to depend on disbursing that national government's 10 million in terms of bringing services. That's my real concern here. How do we really fund it, service it?
All right, Governor, thank you very much for that insight. I know the National Planning Minister would want to respond to that, but Minister, if you can just give me a minute. If we can go to Mrs. Julie Bengi. In terms of partnerships and collaboration between the Provincial Health Authority and the DDA, how do you see that working, Mrs. Bengi, from your perspective?
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, audience. The Provincial Health Authority came into existence by an Act of Parliament also a few years ago, and we in the Western Highlands, we implemented the Act, the authority in 2011, so we have been in existence only about 3 to 4 years now. And then we have the District Development Authority coming in. So to be honest, we have not begun any discussions as to how we will work together to deliver the health services. But going forward, we can see there is some partnership between us and the DDAs. We see that we can supply the workforce, and then the DDAs can take over the infrastructure development. That probably is the way we see us working together. But as yet, we have not really sat down to deciding and determining who does what and who does the other. So, that's probably where we are.
The primary issue is, are we bringing services closer to our people through this process? And to me, most definitely yes. Definitely in Alotau district, and all the reports I've seen, things are happening in the districts now, right down at ward level, that have not happened before. We are taking a resource envelope that has existed since independence, and we are now pushing it down closer to our people. There's issues with it, but the DDA comes in to package this. So whether you're dealing with provincial governments or the district authorities who have this money at this point, regardless, you have to interact with them. So that's just part of the process. Yeah. We are going to deliver health services with DSIP and with the funds that are given to provincial health authorities and with other PIP funding. And it's a requirement that we interact together so that it is consistent. The standards are there. Technical standards are given by the health people. And we work together, and I see it as just a natural consequence. Minister. With the governor's points about the sustainability of the DDA, basically, like I'm doing in my district, I'm keeping it cost neutral. Those staffing in the district administration are already part of the recurrent staffing grant process. So it's only when we take on 10 million, we have a portion of that 10 million, a percentage of it that we can utilize to capacitate us for the purposes of implementing that capital program. But if we don't get DSIP, they will just continue on their normal staffing grants that they receive anyway. So, it doesn't necessarily have to rely on additional revenue raising or things like that. There is no doubt there are some interaction issues with the provincial governments, but always keep in the back of your mind, as the Governor said from the output, if the intention is honourable and if it is demonstrated to be working, then we just got to try and honour that intention by building the necessary structure around it.
Minister, thank you very much. And as with all government reforms, there's always teething problems. So that's expected in the early stages of a program like the DDA. Now, if we can be able to go to the churches, and the churches are a big provider of basic services outside of Port Moresby and major urban centers. You find the churches in some of the most isolated communities in Papua New Guinea. So we have the United Church Moderator over here. So Reverend Siai, if you can be able to just, how do you see the DDAs working with the churches in terms of delivery of basic services to our rural people?
Thank you. To answer your question about DDA, DDA to us is something that is new. I'm not sure of all the churches, whether they are aware of DDA or already working together with the DDAs, but for United Church, I'm not too sure about that. But let me just acknowledge this program which is called DDA, on behalf of the churches. Firstly, from a historical point of view, when the churches brought the gospel to our country, they did not only bring the gospel of Jesus Christ, but they brought social services with them. We call them social gospel, which is education and health. So nothing is new to us about bringing services down to our people as churches. Secondly, structures of churches. We have, from the top right down to where our people are, we have all our offices there, all the churches, and our representatives are all in those areas, down to where the people are. So structurally, the churches are with the people as well. And if the structure and that service is provided by the churches can be recognized by the DDAs, they should partner with the churches to bring these services down. You talk about health services, you talk about education services, we have them all there. And the good news is that from the top level, the national level, we have, as churches, 7 mainline churches have agreed and signed a partnership with the national government of Papua New Guinea. And we are funded by the national government. Last year, we began to receive a fund from the national government to assist the churches in providing health and education services to our people. And we were funded last year with 25 million. This year, unfortunately, we went down to 10 million from the government. 1 million for United Church Papua New Guinea. But we have a lot of health and education facilities throughout the country. You talk about churches, you go to where the remotest part of Papua New Guinea, you don't find health, you don't find education, you find a church building. We are with the church, we are with the people. And I think if the DDAs can recognize that services and churches with the people, they should partner with them. They should be recognized in making decisions about how we can bring services down to our people. You talk about health, for example, health service, health workers, church health workers. They can walk up mountains. They can cross rivers. They can sleep in the bush. They can do all these things. Public servants, I believe not many of them would like to do that. But health services, health workers, they can walk mountains, I tell you. And if this partnership from the national level is recognized in the DDA, I think we will go well with this program. Thank you.
Reverend Siai, thank you very much for the background. Very, very passionate. You are showing your passion for rural Papua New Guinea. We got churches. We have other entities like the Provincial Health Authority, but then we also need to bring in business. Where does private sector play a role in terms of, this new animal called the DDAs, which the government has brought in to be able to roll out services to rural Papua New Guineans? So, Graham, that's where you have to come in. The government has been big on public-private partnerships, and being in the media, being in the newspaper, we've read so many stories on that pillar, on the policy by government. Now, in terms of DDA, how do you see them encouraging economic activity in rural Papua New Guinea? And you got the experience here going back to the 80s. What's your advice to DDA boards who've just been created, in their bid to, bring services to our people?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And it's a pretty tough question to look back 36 years and try and remember what was good about it. But, as 22 years old, I walked from Waidapi to Tarpini on an extension patrol, and every village had a clean water supply and toilets. Now, in Biala, where I'm based now for the last 10 years, and every Tuesday I go out and visit smallholder blocks. I've got 3,800 of them. Very rarely do I find a water tank or a latrine. And so the standard has really gone back. The health extension patrols don't go out anymore. My company clinics, I've got 10 of them. Last year we treated 76,000 people. Now, most of those are probably not company employees and their dependents, but because of the decline in the government facilities and the church facilities, they've just got nothing in them. Now, I would love to partner with the DDA or the Provincial Health Authority and be able to run the Biala Health Centre and turn it into a rural hospital. But, the church's Reverend was telling us over lunch, You know, they've promised all this money, and we read in the Post-Courier today that they're promised all this money and it doesn't eventuate and they can't deliver the services. So my board is very wary of me trying to develop better social benefits for the community I live in, because there's no guarantee, even if you sign a PPP agreement, that you're going to get paid. And another, I mean, I did over 2 million kinas worth of highway maintenance last year. After the floods, we had 4.2 metres of rain in 3 months, and there wasn't much left of our road infrastructure. So the work supervisors, we work very closely with them, and we went and got the roads opened again, built bridges, built roads, culverts, drains, you name it, we did it. And I stick my invoice in, no money. Okay? So there's my contribution to health and education. It's in road maintenance, because if I don't have roads, I don't have a business. Last year, and for many years, the oil palm industry has been asking the government to boost the tax credit rate to 5%. It's 1.5%, which gives me 1.5 to 2 million kina a year. It's nothing. Okay, if it was 5% and I had 10 million kina a year, I could really partner with the government, but I want to see their commitment first before I put my money in. And I think that's the way we can go. There's 50,000 people in Biala covering 4 LLGs. I go into East New Britain as well, into inland Pomio, really remote, poor area. And agriculture can really deliver a lot of benefits, but we've got to get the government money in with ours, and the only way is through the tax credit scheme. The other big thing, I think, is somewhere land. I mean, we're talking about health and education, but you don't have agriculture, you don't have business without security of land. And the administration of state land is absolutely disastrous. It's really an issue that needs to be addressed before we can properly partner. We need land, we need infrastructure, and if the government does that properly, then we can grow the business much faster and see a lot more of the SME development that the government wants to target.
Well, there's many issues raised there, but I can say to Reverend Bernard Siai, in terms of the churches, and which level do you want to talk about? The national level, we've got our national programs, but the church is a major partner of government. But if you want to bring it down to district level, I can tell you that I've provided through the JDP and BPC, now the DDA, so much funding to the churches. Starting off with a boat. We bought a 1 million kina boat, 45-foot boat for every one of the mainline churches down there from DSIP funding, which is part of empowering the churches themselves. I would say most, if not all, the church schools are funded. We've built the Suau High School in partnership with the United Church, the high school that the Suau people have been crying for years and years for. For 30 years, we've come in and made a partnership with the church, who wanted to withdraw the Pastors' College down there at Fife Bay back to Kwikila. I had to come in and say, no, don't do this, we want, and go through with the bishop, Renagi, and we've ended up opening and building the Suau High School there. We've probably funded nearly every single United Church in Alotau district, and every single other church over 10 years. But I would say that we, the government, we through the district development authorities are trying very, very hard to partner with a key development partner and spiritual leader in our communities, and that is the churches. And that is why certainly I make sure that the churches are looked after through the DDA process. Nationally, this government reintroduced the church partnership program. After we assessed it and some of the abuses that were going on, like some of the other programs, we introduced it. We focused it down to education and health. We formed the Church Development Council, and we are seeking comprehensive submissions from the churches that we are funding in a proper, transparent manner. Not this dishing out through the department secretary and the minister on an ad hoc fashion to all our friends and sundry. That's what was going on. We've brought that down now, we focused it. We're supposed to have an annual forum. On that basis, we fund the churches. So the Graham has raised quite a few points, and look, the private sector is the primary creator of wealth and jobs, and the government's role is to create the empowering factors so they can come in and buy our coffee and buy our copra, provide the transport services and so on. And we have different various engagements with the private sector through different partnerships, like for example, supporting us in our case to buy copra. We subsidise copra through a joint venture partnership on a acquittal-backed basis. They purchase the copra at 1 kina minimum price, and then they acquit back and justify the difference between the market price and the 1 kina, and we reimburse that funding. And other arrangements we can go into in relation to DDAs trying to support private sector. Tax credit scheme is another issue. We very much supported the elevation up to 5% because in areas where there is a lack of capacity, government presence and capacity, particularly some of the resource areas, we're trying to utilise the private sector to provide some of the services that government otherwise can't do because of that lack of capacity. And I've sponsored a submission to raise the tax credit rate to 5%, but there is a bit of argument going on with Treasury because Treasury constantly doesn't want to undermine the revenue base. So there's an ongoing argument around there.
Minister, thank you very much. I think I will have to come back to you on the on how the DDA is functioning in your electorate in Alotau, in Milimbe province. What happened was, but a program such as this will never be complete unless you actually have ordinary Papua New Guineans outside of Mosby giving their own perspectives about a policy such as DDA. So the Tanim Graun team were actually dispatched over to the Western Highlands province last week to check out progress at the Mulbaya Lumusa district and to see how DDA is working and from the eyes of ordinary Papua New Guineans themselves. So just give us a few minutes to actually play video footage and let ordinary Papua New Guineans tell you what they think.
Well, we're into 4 main areas, I think. That's education, health, and infrastructure, and community development, and the other area we're looking at is the commerce. We started from zero, in areas like districts like Lomusa. There's nothing there, barely nothing. So we are now getting in there and building the district office. Now as we speak, there's work starting. The district office is now set up. The work is underway. Then we are thinking about putting the health center up. Also it is given us, like I said, our major partner. We believe in partnership. We cannot handle the district ourselves. We will achieve less if we try to do that. So we need partnership now. We've been partnering with the provincial government, the office of the governor. The member and the open member and the governor have been working very closely with other MPs like the member for Day and Tonbol Nebeli and Hagen Central. So it's a partnership that will bring a lot of changes. Otherwise, we'll achieve less. So that is one, the provincial government. Then we have been partnering with AUSAID, our big partner, our major sponsor. They have funded a lot of money into the district, especially in the health sector. And we've been partnering with the Baptist Union of Papua New Guinea. They have been They've been our partners in managing the schools and the health centres that we have in the district.
I, as a local here, I'm teaching for 31 years, and I see that education is a lifeline for the people. And through education, I think that will move the country forward. And you know, as the older people fade away in the different departments, the young ones will replace, and the country will develop. So we promote, and people take ownership of the education. That's why you will see a lot of adults coming in. The pulling factor is that free education policy. We can't deny their rights. We cannot push them back because government is opening the door on the other end, and you know, pressure coming to our way, so we accept them. And to cater all this, we need classrooms, we need teachers' houses.
We call it a district hospital. It's been run by Mission, but it's quite small, you can see. But since the DDA came in, we saw that the buildings, upcoming buildings, like we're going to have a new maternity ward. There's a new accident emergency building coming up, and the other buildings will be demolished, and this hospital is going to be a big change.
This place was a war-torn place, tribal warfare, you know, barely nothing here. So this, as you can see, there's a little building on the further side. That's a whole police station, very small one. So the DDA came in and we saw the need, so we built this building that's going to hold probably over 25, 30 officers in here. We've asked the boss in here to do a structure. So we want to have a look at each section, each division, like CID, like traffic, or, you know, those kind of stuff. We've asked him to do a structure on that. So our intention is to build a manpower.
Lo and order am stop now. Na mi plan mas mi plus mani lo pocket bilu mem stop save. Osem na mi plan mas because sem buy am senis now na mi plan mas.
Now mi plan get big plan just long road. Osem you get all good plan bridges, road mi plan transporting all goods belong store. Kagarok mi plan got in Laos. Mi plan karam stock fit gam. Karam coffee bag belong mi plan go and up.
If we want to see development in this country, that is the way to go. And like I said, there has to be, apart from that, checks and balances must be there. And if there's checks and balances and proper management in the district, decentralization and the DDA is the way to go. You'll see plenty of changes. I can guarantee you that.
Very, very touching. Mrs. Bengi, you've actually worked for 18 years in your province, you know. How do you rate the progress in terms of DDA? It could be it's basically a new concept, but looking at these personal testimonies that have come out from Western Highlands, what's your view?
Thank you, Alex. DDA thing started, concept came into existence only a year ago, but the decentralization of powers and the administrative structures, all of these things were in place before. And we used to call them district offices and going down to wards and all. So things were happening back then. It's just a name change, and the open members put, the picture is really talking about one district that's really effective and it's working. And so that cannot be generalized to mean all of the others are working as well. It is really the focus of the member, open member, who puts his priority to where the needs are, that you can see things are happening somewhere. But that in the Western Highlands, the other districts like Tambul and they have yet to establish the DDA concept. So really we cannot be talking about the others experiencing the same level of change.
Mrs. Bengi, thank you so much. And we actually had this conversation during lunch, and Governor for Western Britain did make reference to that. It could actually, the success of DDAs could actually boil down to the passion that the individual member will have, in rolling out services. And I'm sure, Minister, you will agree with me, when I'm a member of your Alotau district Facebook group, so I get to see all the progress that you get to post on Facebook. So I know that you are doing a good job, so good on you. But, Governor, you did make a mention about that, how passionate, how passionate do members of parliament, the open members have to be for the success of DDAs?
Thank you, Alex. I mean, as we have witnessed Mulbaya, and then we have witnessed also during Leadership Summit, the Alotau district, various developments happening. We have to give credit where it's due. I mean, I do personally acknowledge this is an excellent, concept or initiative, in the cost of bringing service to the districts. But again, it boils down to how passionate the members are. I mean, with due respect to all those hardworking members, and we acknowledge that this particular DSIP and PSIP is extending services like never before. I mean, whether we like it or not, simultaneously there is something happening in 89 districts. That's the reality. You go to, because it's a big money, 10 million kina, you can't sit on it. Definitely something has to be done. Either a classroom has been built or aid post is built. And of course, there are people who are talking very passionately about this one, like Graham King. He's been here for over 30 years, and some of these people have seen the development of PNG developing, working from when they arrived this country, walking from the old airport to going to the domestic airport. Now they see like a brand new refurbished international airport, flyovers and all those developments. And of course we have to give that stability to the government so that they can implement those development plan, which is like okay, now they started from Port Moresby, the next is Leh, the next is Gorakhpur, then Western Highlands, then Kokopo, and all those developments can come in. And it's like the question is like, how do we really monitor this development? Like you have captured this one, like Julie said, there are 89 DDAs that amounts will run into billions. The only way I found it is like, rather than we generalize DSIPs just like in a one-line component, like for example, like a PSIP has to be itemized as per the requirements of WADI. They want to know how much you exactly spent on education, health, law and order, and various these sectors. Whereas DSIP will be simply a one-line item. So that's when, like, it really depends on each member or DDA and that particular body to be genuine about. We put it in the budget so everybody can see what exactly we want to do, so that we can merge that plan of district and the province. Otherwise, there is only one line which shows that this is DSIP 10 million kina, but there is no clear demarcation as to that 10 million kina will perform to what responsibilities and all. So that's our main issue. And also, like as Graham mentioned, that oil palm contributes like 1.6 billion to the revenue, when especially at this time when we talk about exchange rates and there is no foreign currency in the bank and restriction of 25,000 per day and all those things. That brings the foreign exchange into the country. And we need to promote, not that I'm soliciting support for my province. It doesn't involve Western Britain. It involves Medang, it involves Kavieng, it involves Alotau, Milan Bay, and all these, because we need to support so that we can encourage that industry and bring more foreign reserves or currency, so that our economy can be sustained. So,
Governor, thank you for that insight. Now, the different partners that the government has, and the churches play a critical role in the delivery of services down to rural Papua New Guinea. And the United Church has established a development arm in 2007. If it will be good for us to get an insight from the moderator of the United Church on what are the priorities for the development arm, and how do you see this development arm partnering with the DDAs?
For United Church Development Unit, we was established purposely to bring this mission of the churches in bringing services down to the steps of our people through this funding. And sometimes it is difficult for us to go beyond our capacity or financial capacity that we have, because we are limited. but our priorities is to just go down to where our people are. And if the DDAs can recognize this, because we have also these offices established in our regions in the United States. We have project officers there who are connected to our development unit office in Port Moresby. And if the DDAs can work together with our project officers down, or the bishops in the regions, that will work well with us. Thank you.
Reverend, thank you so much. Now, in terms of the contributions by the private sector, Graham, I have to come back to you on this. You did mention 76,000 people being treated at all health facilities run by your company. How do you see DDA coming into the picture in terms of delivery of health services? Do you actually see them playing a role, maybe in partnership or maybe taking on that role more clearly into the future?
Yeah, Alex, thanks. Let's start. I've got 50,000 people in my, well, it's not a district, it's half a district, I suppose. And every month, salary and wages, 4 million kina, and the purchase of fruit from smallholders, another 4 million kina. And every payday for the smallholders, the alcohol abuse, the matuka, the fights, and my security staff pick up the pieces. Minister, I believe in Alotau that you have a ban on the sale of yeast to try and control matuka production. And working through the Chamber of Commerce, I've asked the West New Britain Provincial Government to try and ban yeast in West New Britain as well. These are the sort of things where we need to work closely together. I don't think there's any real structure that needs to be put in place, but the structures are already there. The Chamber of Commerce is quite strong in West New Britain, and we ask, there's a good relationship with the provincial government. The DDA at this stage is a complete unknown to us because it doesn't exist, and I'm trying to think of how I will partner with them when there's a provincial health authority already, just been established, and we have our own clinics. We're willing to partner, but we can deliver the services and manage things, we believe, much better than what the government can. Now, we've got doctors already there and we pay them well. We've got a lot of nurses. There's no doctor in the Biala Health Centre. There's no X-ray machine. So it costs us 300 kina every day to send a 10-seater to Kimby with our TB patients. There's so many, everything is either in Moresby or Kimby, it's not in Biala. So I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but if that's the government's direction, then we've got to find a way.
And we've said it before, it comes down to leadership. You can have structures and laws and so on. Many of us were achieving these sorts of things without the DDA structure anyway. The DDA structure has just helped us to accelerate it. And there's many good MPs, as shown in the Leadership Summit, came and presented their cases as to what is being achieved. And you can compare, as has been said, different districts. Some are going ahead and faster than others, but a lot of it comes down to leadership. And the unfortunate reality, I'll tell you, I've been in politics for 10 years now. The unfortunate reality is you virtually got to drag the public service. The public service, yes, they work hard, they're good, but they're going 10 miles an hour. We want to be going 100 miles an hour. That's the difference. And it would be wonderful if we could just resource the agencies of government and they would go ahead and do the work. But unfortunately, that's not how it happens. Unfortunately, you got to put in so much elbow grease to get the system to work. And when you look at a place like Mumbai and you think, wow, there's a lot happening, and there is, because I've been there a couple of times. But a lot of it is due to the energy and the effort of that MP. He just puts in, and he's a classic and a wonderful example of a successful Papua New Guinean that came from the village, built his business, Tracer Transport, and he worked and worked. He's multi-millionaire. He has now decided to turn his attention to an organised, enthusiastic leader that cares for the people and works, tries to support government systems, not undermine them, is the key. And the DDA, just like the ward councils and the provincial government, are just mechanisms that require good leadership with resourcing. That's the difference. Decentralisation has always been there, or it's been there since the 90s, since the reforms of the provincial government system, but we have never resourced that system, you see. That's the difference.
Minister, if you can just quickly just let us know, how much funding do DDAs have to deal with in a financial year?
Well, since our government has come in, it's basically been 10 million kina a year. And then, of course, you get the DSGs, District Support Grants, which are the constitutional grants, which are 500,000 a year as well. In last year's budget, we attempted to top up education and health with another 5 million. But at the end of the day, it got funded at 2.5 million. There are other programs, like the housing program I mentioned. Each district was given 1 million kina to build institutional housing, to build 10 houses under the 40,000 house program that we talked about. So it's significant resources, but basically in terms of DSIP, the others can come and go sometimes, a little bit depending on the PIP and the budget, but we are trying to stick to the commitment of 10 million a year. With the provincial governments, it's 5 million kina per district, per provincial government. It has been varied this year, but the first 3 years was fully funded, and then this year it's been reduced to a flat 10 million kina per province, and the balance is going towards health. It's actually sitting at provincial health services, health management services under the health department, and it is to go towards health projects in that particular province at the decisions of the governors. And I think I mentioned or did not mention, the LLG SIP was 500,000, and then it was 100,000 and 100,000. The good bishop talks about the church partnership program and the slowness in the funds coming. It's like the free education. It's not for want of. It's not because we don't desire to fund these programs. We just had a few issues in relation to the end of last year and this year because of unforeseen circumstances that has made things a little bit tight for us. The drought in particular, and of course the collapse of the oil and gas price and the commodity prices, which are beginning to turn around. It is these circumstances that is causing delays longer than we would like in terms of some of these programs, including the church partnership program, the TFF, which is going out this week. It is not because the government doesn't like the churches or is making a commitment and doesn't want to fulfill the commitment. We very much
Reverend,
want to fulfill all these commitments of our government, but we're just dealing with circumstances. Some of the circumstances are beyond our control, but we remain committed.
We've actually got a question from the audience, so let's give this opportunity to this Papua New Guinean to be able to express his views about what he has to think and what he has to say about the DDA concept.
Comparing the DDA with the local level government, what are the significant differences in their functions in regard to service delivery, and what are the social and political indicators that will be used to measure the DDA? Thank you.
Did you get that, Minister?
Oh, yes, thank you. No, the LLG remains there. The LLG is a legislative arm, whereas the DDA is more an implementation arm. But as we bring the Planning Act forward, I mentioned, and the creation of the service delivery framework, we will establish these service delivery hubs in a cascading manner from the regional headquarters all the way down to the ward, and we will establish the minimum services that are required to go at each of those points, and then the responsibilities for those different levels, to help clarify roles and responsibilities that are a little bit confusing at the moment, including with the local level government. But the DDA, just remember, it's primarily it's to facilitate implementation and to speed up implementation, and that is the primary difference. And we need to bring this legislation to create the clarity as to who is meant to be doing what. And as I said, we will even be resourcing the council wards actually directly to provide their minimum levels of services, with their relevant human resources down there, and the minimum services like elementary has to be there, the aid post has to be there, the water supply has to be there, community resource centre has to be there, and then the peace officer, the village court magistrate, the ward recorder, etc., is what we want to establish in this service delivery framework, which is it's one of 3 frameworks created in the National Planning Act.
Quickly, sorry, Minister, I mean, here comes the budget credibility. When something appears in the budget, people have that expectation. For example, Thalassia Ring Road, 10 million, appeared in 2014 budget. Money came in November, taken back in December. How do I explain to people that, hey,
Yes.
you boasted about doing that ring road and then, it didn't happen and all those things. And Piala is not as bad as, what Graham is mentioning. Like, West New Britain is a complex province. This
Yes.
is mini Papua New Guinea I'm talking about. You talk about the entire 22 provinces live in how many in West New Britain? Of course, you can expect, those social breakdowns. And one district, Thalassia district, is 230,000 population, just one district. And you imagine a district called Abau or Rabaul, maybe 30 to 50,000 population. He's talking about 50,000 population in one small district town, Biala town, is more than 50,000, whereas that Thalassia district is 230,000 population, and we are calling it as one district. And how do we really deliver services? The money has to be allocated based on population, and of course this is a big topic, I don't want to go into it, but Minister, we need some credibility where, to use all those powers in cabinet to make sure something we promised, okay, make it happen, so we honor our word with our actions. So that's the kind of challenges we face.
All right, just quickly in response, I lost money in my district too in this budget process. So again, it's not the intention. Circumstances arose. We collectively decided we had to adjust the budget. And in doing so, we collectively accepted certain cuts. Unfortunately, some of us probably suffered more than others in that process. I lost 5 million for my North Coast Highway, which services 4 local level governments and 2 other districts in Milne Bay. And so, but I sympathise. The Thalassia is big, just like Alotau district, 7 local level governments. We are going through a process. Boundaries Commission has to take on this process, but what we did was, I wrote to the Provincial Affairs Minister, we're discussing it at Cabinet, the ranking of the districts in terms of population and area size, and I said that the ones that come in the top 20 under both categories should qualify to be split into 2. And there were 5 districts only that qualified on those 2 criteria. And one of those is Thalassia and another one was Alotau. Because of those particular criteria. So funding has to be fair, funding has to be based on criteria, and obviously the greater the need, that's where the funding goes, just like the functional grants do through the Economic Fiscal Commission. And there's no doubt that West New Britain deserves at least another district governor, and you've been very vocal about this, as well as the other issues like the Thalassia Ring Road. And you're doing your very, very best. And I wish we could fund everything, and including your many requirements in your difficult province.
Not everything, Minister. Whatever we committed. That's all. I don't want anything apart from what we commit.
All right. Okay. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you for that. Now we'll actually have to round up now. Now we heard so much about I think the success of the DDAs ultimately boils down to the commitments from the respective open members to his people or to her people. And ultimately it comes down to leadership and how serious do our politicians take leadership. A very lively discussion by the panelists as well as the audience. We would like to thank you for joining us on this program. For more information on the show as well as previous episodes of the show, see the link below your screen. Natingim, Tok Tok Bloyu by Tanim Graun.